Well, good morning, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and it is Wednesday. It's 6 degrees in southern British Columbia. And that would make it, wow, 42 in Washington State. So we have a beautiful day. The sky is blue in places. You know, one of the things you learn about living in the Pacific Northwest is you get to appreciate the small things in life. So if you look to the left of my car, the sky is blue. If you look to the right, not so much. If I look ahead of me, not so much. But on the left, it's beautiful blue sky. It's the sort of weather where you think somewhere in the world there is a rainbow going on right now. Which would be if I put my back to the sun. Yeah, right. I think I gotta drive. Anyway, there's bound to be a rainbow somewhere because it definitely is quite nasty looking weather everywhere except to my left. So I'm gonna keep looking to my left. It's a good idea. So thank you for those of you who had a chance to watch yesterday's vlog and understood my confusion. I was so glad to know that I wasn't the only one that had confusion on this dilemma. And you know, I always think that that's why I love doing stuff, the broadcasts and sort of discussing these things on the vlogs, is because that all too often we think we're the only people that are, you know, sort of having this issue or are confused by this, or as we found out, you know, who knew why they have the little stickers on the back of cars to say that there's a mother and a father and 3 children and a dog. You know, if I hadn't asked that question that day, none of us would have learned why they do that. And in case you weren't watching that particular video and going, why do they do that, Sal? And they do that so that if the car's in a crash, they know that's what they're looking for. A mother, possibly, a father, possibly 3 children could be in that car, and also a dog. Make sense? So I certainly didn't know that. And the same we found out for the stickers for baby on board. This is called, if I'm in an accident, don't just look after me. There should be a baby on board, or could be. So that's how we learn. So my confusion was sort of, you know, where do I balance what I've learned with what I know? And I've always said that I've heard so many times that the Jesuit monks always said that if you give me a child until they're 7, I've got them for life. I mean, when I say they always said, I mean, I've heard that quote of the Jesuit monks many, many times. And maybe many times from the same person, which might have been my mother now that I think about it. But in other words, if they can sculpt you between, you know, in your formative years, that the chances are you will remain a Jesuit for the rest of your life. And which is part of the reason, I think, why a lot of schools start up that are run by religious organizations. And so it's what we learn. And so much of who we are is what we have learned. The reason we have so much midlife crisis And some of you know this one in spades, I know. And perhaps you could give me some feedback on that one. How many of you have been through a midlife crisis, or, you know, it didn't necessarily hit you at midlife, maybe it hit you at some other time. But how many of you have been through that crisis in your life where you're going, I don't even know who I am anymore? And maybe some of you are going through it right now. And the reason that happens is because we were not living what I want to call, because of the subject this week, an honest life. What we were living was somebody else's idea of what our life should be, and that was a parent, probably, or in some cases a husband or wife that was controlling you. And then we end up, or we have a situation where we don't live a life at all, we just live for our children. You know, that is our life, is doing nothing but live for our children. And so today I wanted to talk about why the midlife crisis gives you grace. How about that? If you're lucky and if you do the right work on it, you're going to find that midlife crisis actually gives you peace. And the reason it does, because you find out who you really are. Now, I spent an awful lot of my life, sorry for the rattling noise, you know it's my coffee cup, right? I spent an awful lot of my life being a very public person. Right? I was forever flying here, there, and everywhere, and standing up on stage and being paid to be funny, or being paid to be wit and wisdom. You know, that was the thing. That combination of wit and wisdom, they seemed to think was a good thing. And so I was paid to be on show. I spent a lot of my life on show. I can remember my parents when I was young constantly putting me on show. You know, I was the performer. They instilled that in me. So, what? Because they thought that was cute. You know, look at little Sal, look what she can do. And so little Sal got a lot of strokes from performing, so guess what? She carried on doing that. But there wasn't a lot of honesty in that. And I'm certain if my parents were alive today, they'd say, well, she was always the performer. That's who she was. And maybe that's true. Or did I get strokes only when I performed? I don't know. The interesting one to work out. But what is amazing is that was a very stressful public life, full of drama, full of high stress, full of more smiling than you want to take a shit at. Okay, I'll try that again. I can't believe I really said that. Shake a stick. What if I need to edit that out? Maybe I'll just put a warning at the front of it. How embarrassing was that? Anyway. I guess my mind's not quite awake yet. So, when I went through midlife crisis, which is really, that happened to me because I got sick. And that was a double midlife crisis because I got sick and could not continue to do what I'd spent a lifetime doing, which was devastating to my psyche. all the things that I held dear disappeared, but what I discovered in that is that actually I quite like not having all that stress. I quite like not having to be the front person all the time. I quite like living without drama. And I spent probably 8 years finding that out. Now, the interesting thing is that I've gone back to some of it, right? Because you cannot be a YouTuber without having some level of, I suppose, drama. You're back to being criticized by some people. Luckily, not too many at the moment, because I don't have, this huge following. I have a very select group of wise people. That's the way I like to look at it. And so, at this stage of my YouTube career, I don't have a great deal of drama going on, thank goodness. And so you look at it and you go, my life actually is quite peaceful. I go to work, and overall, my job is actually fairly peaceful. I've created that environment. I've created a routine that keeps it that way. And so instead of, I used to panic all the time because I couldn't possibly keep up. There was too much to do. I could not keep up. There was too much work for one person. And then one day I went, that's right, there is. It's too much for one person. So you don't have to try and do it. Wow. So then what I learned to do was to go back to my time management teaching and learning. And that was, do so many hours of each day. And you get as far as you get. And as long as you're constantly doing the most important things, then, yeah, sure, some things fall through the cracks every now and then, but you get most of it done. For those of you who read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's all about getting the important things in life done. And that's not just work. So to me, as you know, my life it consists of these compartments. Some hours are spent doing work. And in my work life, I put that into compartments as well. So much time doing this, so much time doing that. And a lot of time that is not scheduled, because I know that I'm in a business where a crisis happens almost every day. And so you need to actually allow for those crises, because if you don't, you're going to be overwhelmed every day. And so I sort of almost go, okay, if it's Monday, then I focus mostly on doing this. If it's Tuesday, I focus mostly on doing that. And if it's Wednesday, I focus mostly on doing this. And if it's Thursday, I focus mostly on doing whatever. And stay flexible within that, but that is what I do. Now, somebody wrote to us and said that that's how somebody they know does their housework. If it's Monday, I don't have to clean the whole house. If it's Monday, I just spend time going and doing the living room. If it's Tuesday, I just go and do something around, this room. And what happens there is that you end up, if you're consistent, I think somebody said their grandmother or their mother does it that way. And then if you're consistent, your whole house is clean constantly, because you haven't got, as Manon and I found out, this overwhelm happening in corners of a room. And by the way, Manon, I still have one box that I have not tackled in my bedroom, but other than that, it's looking pretty darn good now. and I wonder how you're getting on with yours. Actually, I lie. I have one box that is what I call the sort of box you carry reams of paper in, and then I've got a small envelope box that's on my bed that has stuff in that I haven't decided where to put yet. So if we have balance in our life, we have peace. For example, I've now got quite the routine about, coming home and doing the videos. I come home, I grab a coffee, I sit down, and I set the video loading from my camera to my computer. That's the first thing I do. And then, while it's doing that, I drink my coffee and catch up with the news. That's a very dangerous situation there, peeps. Okay, and so I really recommend that you do that, because it will bring peace to your life. Now, if you've obviously got a lot of things going on at different times, then you have to sort of remember you choose these things, all right? If you've got to run around like an idiot because the one child has ballet, the other has soccer, the other has remember that this is stress that you took on. You chose to have your child do these activities, and when you did it, you knew what it was going to bring. It's like having a puppy, right? You know it's going to be 15 years of commitment. When you got pregnant, you knew it was going to be a lifetime commitment in some cases, right? You thought it was going to be 18 years, but some of you found out, lifetime commitment. Oh, some of you may know that, when I'm not doing my work and DearMamaSal, I also help young people train to go try and get into med school. And my one student from this year phoned me up last night. It was so nice to get that call. And the interview that he had to do last night was, yesterday rather, was a group setting interview. And I really did encourage him to come back and do one session just on the strategies for talking to a group of people, because it's very different from talking to one. And he did come, and we worked for a couple of hours on that. And he phoned me yesterday, and I want to tell you something. What a delight to hear him. It touched my soul, because he kept saying, "Sal, you can't believe it. You were so right." And then he was telling me some of the things that he did, and he said, "And I remember you saying, if they start to laugh and interact with you, you will know that you got them." And he said they laughed. He said, "I gave some really good answers, but then every now and then I put in a Sal, because I taught him how to do that." And he said, and I think the first one I did, it sort of caught them by surprise, and they sort of chuckled. But he said by the time I put another one in a little bit later, he said they were laughing, and they were laughing at each other as well as at me, with me. And he did some self-deprecation stuff, making some fun comment. And it's so scary for these young people to go in for these interviews. Your whole life depends on it. You spent your whole life studying and getting the marks, and then you find out the marks alone don't get you in. And so I've always said that the work I do is to give certain students an unfair advantage. I teach them body language. I teach them voice tones. I teach them how to get people to interact. how to bring people in rather than keep them out. And it sounds like he did a really good job. I'm so proud of him. And so I said to him last night, be at peace. You have done all you could do. You studied hard for a lifetime. And you spent a lot of time seriously. There's a lady parking a Mercedes SUV. And if you could see the way that she's parking it, makes you wonder whether she should be driving a Mercedes SUV. Now, was that a judgment call? Absolutely. Did she mess with my piece? Yes, she kept me waiting. Right. The imperfect Dear Mama Sal says, have a great day, be at peace, and be honest. Bye-bye for now.